Previously on The Great Game. There were a few cities that fell, notably the cities of Elevala, Nalaik, and Chilacota. While all of these city captures have been significant in one way or another, we are beginning to see empires start to carve out territory for themselves. As we come to the 10th episode, and as we come to turn 100, finally, this is the point where we are beginning to see a more defining shape of the world and a more definite structure to the story we are about to see take place on the world stage. As we witness the Shawnee capital city of Prophetstown growing in danger as Shoshone forces, along with their allied Comanche, American, and Aztec allies, push forward into the Shawnee homelands. With all that out of the way, let's move on to the episode. Huzzah! Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is Kazia, as I was just introduced by myself. Let's move on to the action. As we can see, already the Shawnee are pushing forward onto Prophetstown. We can also see that the Americans, of course, are still pushing on to the city of Mequachake, and Canada still has a significant army in the area, which makes me think they might join the conflict soon. To the south, we see the recent Shawnee capture of the Comanche city of Jupe. The Comanche, of course, have been contributing as well to the Shawnee war efforts, but not very much. They have honestly been sort of the loser of their conflict. But maybe because they're losing that war, the Shawnee forces are distracted, and thus Aztecs in the south near Skotash might have an in to take the city. Now, before we move on to the next scene, I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who's been supporting the series. If you want to support the series further, please be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe down below. In Europe, we can see that Karelia is still fending off against the Soviet Union, again. Over in Persia, we see that the Asherids under Nadir Shah are still fending off against the Khansi. This conflict does not seem like it has much life left in it, but it's nice to at least see the Golden Horde and Karakatai. Over in the other side of Persia, we see the Achaemenids still fending off against the Vijayanagara. The Achaemenids, of course, are led by none other than Cyrus the Great. As we move on, I do want to ask, what sort of narration have you guys been enjoying thus far? Do you guys like the more story-oriented narration? Or do you just like me shooting the shit, saying what I feel is appropriate for each scene? Moving on, we see that Carthage is engaging Morocco in their war with the Alawites. Alawite Morocco is led by none other than Ismail ibn Sharif, and Carthage is led by Hannibal. As we transition over to Europe proper, we can see that Aquitaine is at war once again with their old rivals, Portugal. Portugal is of course trying to settle the northern peninsula of Brittany, but honestly it's a bit hard to say whether the war will go anywhere this time. Of course, we do have embarkation and naval units this time, so the city of Porto could be in some danger, but I don't see Portugal really taking too much damage, and it looks like Manuel's Portugal is expanding quite well. As mentioned, Portugal will be able to set up the city of Gaia in the Brittany Peninsula right now, evidently. To the other side of Europe, we can see that the Soviet Union under Joseph Stalin is invading Yugoslavia under Josip Broz Tito, trying to take his namesake city of Tirograd. As a side note, can you imagine how awkward it must be to have a city with your name? Over in southern Africa, Lesotho under Moshoeshoe I is still at war with Maravi under Kalonga Masla. There's not too much engagement in this conflict, but it seems like things are ramping up at this moment in time. In fact, if we look closer, we can see there's quite a bit of conflict as Lesotho is merging their forces around the conquered city of Mbewe. While we are at the 10th episode, I want to pose this question to the audience because I try to engage with the audience, try to do the casual YouTuber stuff, and as we can see the Yakuts invading Mongolia with their city of Morone, I want to know, what do you think has been the highlights of the first 10 episodes thus far? My personal favorite moments has been the wars Brazil has had, seen here, with Argentina. Speaking of Brazil, we can see that the Makushi are still at war with Brazil. Moving on, we see in Ukraine's turn, they are beginning their siege of the Yugoslav city of Skopje. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. I am not bilingual, I'm not trilingual, I don't speak very many languages at all. If you can't tell, I hardly even speak English that well. Over down south in the Black Sea, we can see that Ukraine is defending against the Ottomans under Orhan near the city of Lviv. Of course, the Black Sea War, as I am going to be calling it, has been a very interesting engagement, as a lot of it has been over sea rather than over land. The Ottomans are still trying to get a foothold into southern Ukraine in order to try and take Lviv or any other city. I think, honestly, this is a very smart move by Orhan, even though there's definitely an expansion route to the east into Asia. If he wants to get a foothold in Europe, this is his best shot. I am also very happy to see that Volodymyr Zelensky, of course, the current president of Ukraine, is fending off against the invading forces very well, just like in real life. Over in the Horn of Africa, we can see that Yemen is still engaged in their attempted conflict with Buganda. Potentially they could get a landhold into Africa, but I don't see it going too far. Vijayanagara is still attempting to get any distance in their war against the Achaemenids, but they seem to be stuck just inching forward. In North America, we can see that the Aztecs are finally beginning their siege of the Shawnee city of Skotash. We can also see that the Shoshone are trying to push fairly hard into Prophetstown. It looks like they may be able to catch the city soon. For those who are enjoying this series and want to see more content like this, I highly recommend going over to Reddit to check out the r/Civ Battle Royale. They are the main inspiration for this series, and not only have I been posting a lot of my videos there in order to bring some of the viewers here, I try to send my viewers from YouTube over there so that they can get the credit they deserve for inspiring me. As we wrap things up in North America, seeing that the Shawnee are still fiercely defending their homelands, we can see that Skotash is in a very dangerous position with nobody left to defend the city. Over in Europe, we can see the Karelian resistance to the Soviet Union once again as their city of Vugarvi, which has been settled right near where St. Petersburg is, funnily enough. They are doing a pretty good job of defending all their territories, well, with the exception of Utua and Eunice, which they have lost previously. Turning over to the Horn of Africa once more, we can see that Buganda over in Lake Victoria are defending themselves against Nigerian invaders. Nigeria, of course, with their new settlement of Ibadan, have been trying to attack the Bugandan capital of Mulago. We also see a new war between the Mughals and Al-Lak. This just in, the Achaemenids break their ceasefire with the Apsharids, sensing a moment of vulnerability from Nadir Shah. Hopefully they're able to keep their conquests this time. We turn over to our latest war hotspot in Europe to see that Aquitaine is still at war with Portugal and trying to make headway towards the city of Braga. Braga, of course, has some of those natural defenses with hills, forest, and mountains in the way of any Aquitaine forces. However, Aquitaine does have the strong foothold of Carthago right nearby. I also want to point out, Aquitaine has no naval units because they do not have any coastal cities. This is going to be a huge uphill battle for them, quite literally, as they attempt to take Braga and Porto. Meanwhile, in the other side of Europe, we see that Joseph Stalin's forces are scrambling, trying to scratch their way into the city of Titograd, but they aren't able to make it into the interior just yet. They are, however, making headway in besieging the cities of Titograd and Ugarvi, regardless. We turn over to southern Africa to see that Lesotho and Maravi are still at war with one another. To the side, we see that the Swedes have declared war on Yugoslavia, which is a new development, but one I don't think is going to be too relevant, unless the Yugoslavians decide, hey, maybe we should join Prussia in colonizing Scandinavia, which, at this moment in time, I do not think is too likely. Things turn from bad to worse for the Afsharids and Nader Shah, as Karakatai under Yeludashi has declared war on the Afsharid state. This may be the beginning of a new phase of the Persian Civil War. Over to the north in Siberia, we see that the Yakuts are still pushing forward and forward into Sakyagin, Elbegdorj, Mongolia, attempting to take the city of Moron. We also see that Goryeo is still at war with Mongolia, despite the fact they don't really seem to have any chance of taking a city other than potentially Bayan Khongor. Should Mongolia lose the city of Bayan Khongor, they will be in a very bad position as Ulaanbaatar and Erdenet are surrounded by Yenisei Kyrgyz cities on the western flank. Over in South America, we can see that the war between the Makushi and Brazil is dying out. The Makushi, who started the conflict, attempting to push back against Brazil and their war efforts against Argentina, we just see that they're losing ground and taking damage in their own cities. Over in Europe, we can see Zelensky on a precarious march towards the city of Titograd, with a band of warriors attempting to take the city. This is to prevent their longtime enemy, Joseph Stalin of the Soviet Union, from taking the city of Titograd for themselves. But beyond that, Ukraine has a bunch of other fronts as well. They are still managing their Black Sea front against the Ottomans under Orhan, and it seems they're doing a pretty good job. They have a significant army, and they're defending their cities quite well against the Ottomans. Should matters grow worse for Ukraine, for instance if the Soviet Union decides, hey, we don't want Zelensky to take the city of Titograd for themselves, so maybe we should try and besiege Mariupol or Odessa. That will turn into a very bloody conflict for both Ukraine and the Soviet Union. I don't see it happening yet, because frankly, neither side has the forces to commit to such an offense. But it is something to keep in mind. For now, I think Ukraine should just focus on trying to take the city of Skopje. Over in North America, the United States of America is having a huge meltdown as President Theodore Roosevelt is throwing a huge temper tantrum over Ukraine defending themselves against the Ottomans, saying that they should give up the city of Lviv and Zaporizhia just out of the kindness of their hearts to their invaders. Turning over to Southeast Asia, we can see Bangladesh has also joined Al-Laq in their war against the Mughals. We turn over to Carthage to see they are fielding their unique unit. Yay! We see elephants on the field, the African forest elephant from vanilla Carthage. Of course, this is a modded Carthage, but it is reusing the vanilla unique unit. Over in Central Asia, we see the Afsharids under Nadir Shah defending against the Karakitai, the Khanti, And to the south, we see them defending against the Achaemenids, although not much right now. We also do know in previous conflicts the Golden Horde has gotten involved. However, it doesn't look like the Golden Horde has much interest in joining this time. In the Black Sea, the Ottomans continue to strive towards Lviv. And in North America, the Aztecs completely devastate the Shawnee village of Skotash, and the Shoshone start to make some headway into the city of Prophetstown. They aren't quite besieging the city walls yet, but they have significantly deteriorated the defenses around the city and are entering the borders of Prophetstown. Now, of course, we're almost nearing turn 100, and if we get an elimination, which is the civilization has all of their cities taken by another civilization, that means the Shawnee will be removed from the game, removed from the competition. If there was any sort of reward I would give out, they wouldn't be able to qualify for the reward. And that has gotten me thinking about what is the reward for this game? And I am still pondering that question, and it's something I would like to pose to the audience as well. Now, one thing I want to discuss about why I put together this series, and this has to do with a lot of the Shawnee, the Shoshone, the Comanche. I am an anthropology student, and one of my areas of focus is Native American studies. As such, I wanted to put together a series that not only portrayed Native Americans, but also really portrayed a lot of indigenous cultures around the world. And so we have indigenous Siberians, we have indigenous Australians, or I guess Aboriginal Australians. And we even have the Native Karelians and different ethnic groups represented as well. Of course, the Karelians are still fending off the Soviet Union, but I wanted to make sure I had a diverse cast of entities within this game, and that I represented a broad spectrum of history. For those who have been watching to the very end and seeing those end cards, those are descriptions I've been putting together myself based on what everyone has collectively brought as contributing their own civilopedias to their civilizations, let's say. Or if it's a civilization I've worked on, I knew some of the personal history for, let's say, Karelia and the East Karelian Uprising. One thing I really hope from this series as a consequence of me making it is that people learn to be more understanding of our differences and of other cultures and histories. And I hope that by making this series, I have made you more curious about history. As we move on, we see that Portugal's city of Gaia is now under assault from Aquitaine's forces as well. There comes a consequence for settling Brittany right near the native French civilization we have in Poitiers. The other Portuguese cities of Porto and Braga, however, remain to be vastly well defended, and I honestly don't know if Aquitaine stands a chance at taking either of those cities. Furthermore, Aquitaine has just declared war on Yugoslavia, joining in this dogpile upon Joseph Broz Tito, who right now is on the verge of losing, and in fact they have just lost their namesake city of Titograd to the Soviet Union. Joseph Stalin has honestly been a very strong contender in this game, and there is a chance he could take a victory, which might be a controversial outcome. Personally, I see it as a very conflicting thing. On one hand, I like that it adds tension to the game, that there is a force that a lot of people might not like that is competing for victory. On the other hand, I think that I'm just gonna say, hey, you know, I'm not a huge fan of genocide, and I have a very complex history with Joseph Stalin because I personally designed the civilization for the Yukagir, and that leader for the Yukagir civilization was Teki Autolak, who was executed by Stalin's forces on a false pretense of being a Japanese spy. Speaking of complex relationships with Joseph Stalin, we go to Ukraine's turn to see they are fending off against Yugoslavia. Of course, they don't really have any risk from Yugoslavia, but they are besieging the cities of Skopje, and with their settlements of Zaporizhia, they have a good base to get a foothold into the city of Split, which, yes, that is just its name, it's Split. We come to the 20-minute mark in the episode to see Yugoslavia defending Skopje, but we can also get a better look at the battlefield around Skopje. There are melee units in range to take the city. It remains at yellow health, but there are a lot of ranged units and siege units, catapults that is, that can destroy the city's defenses and lead to an easy capture for Ukraine. We turn to Morocco to see the ongoing war with Carthage, and off to the side, I want to point out that the Makushi have made peace with Brazil, thus making Brazil a victor in a very decisive war for determining their control as a hegemon of South America. Meanwhile, Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb is not bringing any joy to Bangladesh. Terrible joke for all those who get it, but anyways, in the city of Ibadan, we see Ugandan forces attempting to besiege the city and raid the rivers of the Upper Nile. Of course, they do not get any pillaging bonuses like they do in Civilization 7. At least I don't believe so. Over in Central Asia, once again, we see Karakitai is pushing onwards towards the city of Nahavand in Afsharid territory. Nader Shah must be shitting his britches, or whatever the Persian word for britches is. By the great brother of Tecumseh, the city of Prophetstown is in grave danger. Only defended by 2 archers, it seems, a dead spearman, and 1 warrior. There does not seem to be much of a lifeline for the Shawnee capital. The Shawnee have a massive force. Well, it's sort of dwindling now, but they have more in reserves. And with chariot archers, and even a warrior and spearman right near the city, we could see a capital being besieged very early on in the game. Remember, this is still the first 100 turns. I also want to be clear, I'm not 100% sure how well the narration for this episode is going. I don't really have a good perspective of these things. I feel like I'm doing a good job. But if there are any critiques one might have, please be sure to leave a comment down below. I do listen to any sort of critiques or compliments, whatever, that anyone wants to leave. That said, if you leave a comment in the description telling me to off myself, I will cry, I will feel very bad about it. It will be very pathetic, but I'll get over it. As we end our tour of North America with the Shawnee's massive turn, we come now to Europe to see that Karelia is still getting their asses handed to them by the Soviet Union, but they're not technically losing because they haven't lost the city yet, and it seems really hard for them to lose the city at this point. Like, the Soviets have tried to take the city of Kimasharbi several times, and they just haven't been able to get a foothold in the city. I've been using that word a lot, right? Foothold. It's a very fun word. As we continue to linger on this scene of Karelia and their cities of Kiastinka and Kimasharbi, I just want to thank you all for joining me on this journey. We've made it through 10 episodes almost. We only have a few minutes left in this episode. And as we come to the Achaemenids' turn, seeing just their defenses against Vijayanagara, really, and their attempted offense against the Asherids, let's be fair here. And I am just so thankful that I get to create this series, and hopefully I bring you some modicum of joy in a very cruel and heartless world. Of course, the world isn't all cruel. But you know who is cruel? Eleanor of Aquitaine, still attempting to get some sort of ground over Portugal and King Manuel I. Okay, I need to stop getting sentimental over it being 10 episodes, but I really do think Aquitaine is doing a pretty good job in this series. They have taken the city of Carthago from Rome, and they are besieging the Portuguese city of Gaia. Further, we can see England has a strong naval presence in the area. Perhaps England may join the war at some point in time. In Central Europe, we see that Prussia, in a war you must have forgotten about, because I sure as fuck definitely forgot about this war, and I'm only including this scene to talk about it. They are fighting against Rome. That is a long war over nothing. And speaking of wars over nothing, Karelia versus the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union has not taken anything yet, but they are surrounding Ugarvi. Meanwhile, in North America, the Shawnee city of Skotash finally falls to the Comanche. All the Aztec effort has gone to waste as the Comanche sniped the city from their hands. Turning over to the northern steppes, we can see that Mongolia is doing their best to defend against Goryeo, and they have. It's just the Qin dynasty that has really kicked their asses. In Europe, we come now to see the Ukrainian siege of Skopje. I am very hopeful that this city may fall this turn. Let's watch very carefully to see if it might. No, I don't think it will actually. It looks like they just don't have quite enough damage to deal to the city in order to take it. However, it is at red health, and it looks like Ukraine may soon capture the city, but it's just not quite there yet. We also see the new settlement to the east of Chernihiv. I'm personally a big fan of the Ukraine civilization, and for those who are a fan of this Ukraine we feature in this game under Volodymyr Zelensky, there is an ongoing event by the modder who designed Zelensky's Ukraine, Ross Sasquatch, called Slava Ukraini. This event is designed to raise money and awareness for charity surrounding Ukraine. I have contributed one of my own civilizations to this event called the Pechenegs. I had a great time designing the civilization, I had a great time with the event, and now I want to make sure I share the information about the event with all of you. We're not seeing too much more happen as we come to the penultimate scenes, so I just want to leave you with the information that a link to all Slava Ukraini civs will be in the description below. The event has a nice collection on the Steam Workshop from Ross Sasquatch themselves. As I finish my obligatory charitable message, I want to say thank you so much to everyone who has supported the series. We come now to the final scene of the episode, seeing that the Shoshone still have not begun an official siege of Prophetstown. I am very grateful to everyone. This has been a hard undertaking for me, and you guys have shown tremendous support thus far. Remember, if you want to see more, leave a like, comment, and subscribe down below. This has been Raja Kazia, signing off. Bye-bye!